So my analysis, very short, is that there is a difference between what you can call esoteric and exoteric language. Now, the problem with the term esoteric is that many people see that as kind of negative. I try to not do that because I think esoteric just means it functions within a specific community. And I think what I have talked about these first two levels that I have just distinguished, the level of the Jamaat and the level of the Muslim public address, that is this esoteric language. One of the most important things in this esoteric language is that it presupposes quite a good knowledge of Islam. So if you're not a Muslim, or if you don't have that knowledge, you will not exactly understand what he refers to, because he will not say it explicitly. I think that's also true in other forms of esoteric language. You have a kind of a common source that you always refer to, like Christians refer to the Bible, and they don't need to say, okay, this is from Luke and this is from the letter to the Ephesians, because most people will know that, or at least used to know that. I'm not really sure if that's the case now. And then you have the more exoteric language, that is the general language that does not presuppose that type of sources. Now, you can of course ask, okay, why take this trouble? Why take the trouble of this analysis of types of discourse? Well, the reason why I did it, because for me it explains what is sometimes called a double agenda. You will maybe have heard some of the problems with the press in the Netherlands, that people, and not only in the Netherlands because it comes from Turkey, people say, well, Gülen has a double agenda. He seems to be very open, very liberal, very universal, but in the core he wants to introduce the Sharia. And I think that has to do with the fact that people cannot see how this exoteric and esoteric language functions, because of course for Gülen, the religious language is the core of what he wants to say, but he addresses different publics, and therefore he uses different strands or different levels of discourse to do that. So I think that helps us to understand why people sometimes think that Gülen has this double agenda, and that even the Gülen movement has a kind of a double agenda, which I think is very important. Also here in the Netherlands, you may remember the Nova television broadcast some time ago about it. Okay. Now, a guy says, coming back to this discourse analysis, that there has been a movement, a development in Gülen from this more esoteric towards the more exoteric language. And for a time I have agreed with that. But I think it's not entirely true. It does not do justice to the complexity of Gülen's discourse. And I have two reasons for that. The one is I have interviewed, thanks to Alpa Alassa, last year some of Gülen's early students in Izmir. And they told me that this universal language and this universal interest has been with Gülen from the very beginning. So he went to the coffee houses and he talked, and you know Izmir was the most secular city in Turkey. So in that sense it's kind of a parallel to Amsterdam. And what Gülen there did in the coffee houses is kind of parallel, for those of you who know, to what Father Jan van Kilston, another Jesuit, did here in Amsterdam. He went to the pubs and he talked with the students, because he said we have to go to where the students are and see what their questions are. Well, that's exactly what Gülen did in Izmir in 1966. So it was there from the beginning. And if you look at his present day discourse, his new internet texts, you will see there is this universal language, but there is also a very Sufi kind of pious language. For instance, if he talks about the birthday of the Prophet, it's a very mystical language, which is really hard to understand if you don't know this Sufi terminology. So I think it has been there all along, and it functions in Gülen's language next to one another, these different